that their accounts are not being tampered with have been built in to this system. And the entire system has been made available on a cloud so as to make it economically viable for banks to now say that we are reaching out to 600,000 villages, all the 50% people who are unbanked today. We are basically reducing the economic barriers for banks to take low-cost, user-friendly services to the last mile. So essentially, when a consumer calls the bank, he authenticates using voice. Once authenticated, he's able to do today many things which are banking and commerce related. He can operate his bank account, he can ask for mini statements, he can ask for last transactions, he can also do remittances. The consumer is now also allowed to top up mobiles, pay electricity bills, and so on through the same mechanism. All you have to do is call a number, authenticate your voice, and say, I want to top up my phone for 50 rupees. It's all spoken, you don't have to touch the keypad during the entire process. And as we move along, we intend to add more commerce features such as railway booking, airline booking, and so on to the same platform, so that when a consumer starts using mobile banking and payments, it should be a one-stop shop for all his commerce needs. What I'm going to show you now is one such deployment which has happened with a customer of ours. This is Basics Sabke. Basics is one of the larger microfinance institutions in this country. They've tied up with over 5 banks for financial inclusion. These include Syndicate Bank, Axis Bank, and some others. And they've deployed business correspondents in over 6 states in this country. One of the deployments which uses our platform, voice-based mobile banking, is what is being shown. This is a Tamil-based video because these pilots are happening in villages of Tamil Nadu. What you'll see now is a customer going up to a business correspondent of Syndicate Bank and requesting to withdraw some cash from the account. You'll see that without an ATM setup, the entire cash withdrawal transaction happens using mobile phones and using voice as a means of authentication and giving inputs to the banks.
So the name of this company is Basics Sabke Transactions. The promise of this...
A customer walked up to a retailer and said, I want to withdraw cash from my account. The retailer called the bank where our platform was running. He said, customer Ragutaman is trying to withdraw 150 rupees. The system automatically called the customer and said, I want to confirm whether you are withdrawing 150 rupees so that there is no fraud in the system. When the customer confirmed that yes, I want to withdraw, the bank said, say a phrase, Indanal, which is a voice biometric check. If the customer had not spoken the right phrase, or if the phrase was spoken by somebody else, the bank would have rejected the transaction because it's a biometric check happening at the bank. Because the customer got authenticated, the core banking system basically allowed the customer to withdraw cash and take the physical cash from the retailer. We believe that this, by addressing the challenges of literacy, security, and being a low-cost technology, is going to revolutionize financial inclusion in this country. The adoption of mobile banking and mobile payments is about to see a surge because of such systems today being available. And I thank Nuance for their partnership with us and sharing the vision that we have for this. With this, I'd like to invite Sunny to share his thoughts on this partnership.
Thank you very much for being here. I appreciate you taking the time to be here. I'm going to keep this fairly brief, and my intent is to walk you through a little bit of what Nuance is and what we do around the world, and just to share with you what we're doing from a global perspective in the area of voice biometrics. So it'll be a short session, and after that we'll welcome Q&A. So with that, let me just take you through a brief. So as a company, we do a number of things in the area of speech recognition, text input, in the field of healthcare, and also in the field of imaging. So that's the 4 main product lines that we have around the world. To be specific, in India, out of the 80 languages that we support around the world, we support 14 Indian languages for vernacular speech recognition, and that's a large investment we've made. And we're very fortunate that we got an opportunity 4 years ago to engage with IIT Madras and get into a collaboration that would start the begin the ecosystem that is required to become successful in the deployment of any technology in a country. And one of the first outputs of that really is Uniphore, so we're very excited about it. As a company, we have a number of patents. We have over 4,000 patents in this technology, in this field. We are widely deployed. We have deployed, some of the other technology of Nuance is deployed in over 5 billion mobile phones, speech-enabled cars, and we're doing about 1 million transactions a day in terms of some of these applications around the country. So that's a little bit about what we do. We've had the great fortune of being able to work with a number of financial service customers around the world, some of them Indian here, and this has allowed a widespread adoption of our technology for a number of applications. I won't go through all of those names, but you'll see a predominant set of customers from Southeast Asia, from Indonesia, Philippines, Thailand, India, and many other Latin American as well as North American and European customers. We also take a lot of this technology and put it into embedded devices, into phones. These are some of those marquee customers that we have. Many of you, I think, came from downstairs where you were in the Honda session. So Honda is also one of the large customers that we have that uses our technology in their automotive vehicles and their larger vehicles. So that's some of the capabilities. For those who've been following the automotive industry, you'd have seen the launch of the Mahindra Xylo cars that also comes with a lot of our speech recognition built into it. Global telecom, lots of telecom customers who are powering a number of applications, including mobile payments around the world. So that's a little bit of the global telecom industry. And we're also deployed in a number of interesting Indian organizations that include high courts, where a lot of the judgments in many of the high courts in India today are completely dictated using speech recognition, so that the copy of the judgment is available fairly immediately after the judgment is pronounced. And this is a fairly widespread deployment, including the Supreme Court of India. And we have other deployments in the various airports and travel and electricity boards around the country. So having said that, that's just a little bit about Nuance. Let's talk about what we are here today for. And that's really your voice is your new password. I was very keen to replace this slide with a little film clip from the movie Shivaji. But I was advised that most of you would have seen that movie where voice biometrics is used by the wonderful superstar to actually authenticate himself into the application. So you probably know a lot of what voice biometrics is all about. So I'll just talk to you a few basic points on this area. We have a number of deployments. We've deployed over 20 million voice prints around the world, and that's growing leaps and bounds every day. There is an agency called the National Institute of Science and Technology, which compares and benchmarks from a security perspective these technologies from around the world, and we've been a consistent winner year over year in that evaluation. And this technology is available from mobile phones, from the web, from IVRs, and many other devices that are going to come into this market. So what does it do? The two important components of voice biometrics. One is behavioral characteristics. Everyone has a way of speaking. Their accent, the speed with which they speak, the way they pronounce, those are all behavioral characteristics. And then there are physical characteristics. Our technology allows us to detect the characteristics of your vocal cord within 0.3 seconds of you starting to speak. And we can tell you what the length, the width, the thickness of your vocal cord is, and many other parameters, your nasal passages, all of those are calculated in an algorithm, and we're able to measure about 28 different parameters about a human voice. And we use that to create a signature, if you want to call that, of your voice. And that's really how voice biometrics works. The time you enroll, we create a signature. We don't store your audio. And that's just to improve security. And then next time when you come to authenticate yourself, we compare that digital voice signature of yours with what we have on file. and then you're either authenticated or you're rejected, depending on whether you're the right person or not. And that's really how voice biometrics works. It has three important flavors. It's used in automated transactions. We have a product line, which is what we're working with Unifor here with. We also have an unobtrusive way where it sits in the background and listens to human conversation. And depending on that conversation, it's able to say whether the person at the other end of the phone who's speaking to me is the right person or not. And that's an important aspect as well, because social engineering is on the rise. And I'll talk a little bit more about identity fraud and social engineering. And that's the same technology that's used in that format in many call centers. And lastly, a more secure or a classified version of the same technology is used in defense and homeland security applications. And that's really out there to look at persons of interest and to identify these persons of interest that governments and military officials may have. And that's the last use of voice biometrics. Some of the common questions that we all get asked, I'm preempting some of these, it'll come, I'm sure you will ask many more in the Q&A. So what if I have a cold? Will it change? Will it fail? And that's an important question, and we address that using a combination of both the behavioral as well as the physical characteristics that are used in creating a voice print. And so even when you have a cold, a couple of parameters change, but not all of them. And that's how we're able to keep the security high in using voice biometrics. So the next question comes in, what if someone records my voice and plays it? Because I'm speaking on a phone, somebody can record it. And again, we have lots of capabilities in that technology that prevent all of that, that prevent recording on analog devices, as in old tape record devices, or high-end digital recorders. And we use techniques with speech recognition that allow us to immediately ask you a question. Because your voice sounded very much like the last time you called, and it's too similar, it's too close. So we may ask you a random question which you can't answer if somebody's recorded your voice. And that's how we keep it even more secure. And finally, impressionists, twins, how does that affect? And these studies have been conducted by the National Institute of Science and Technology around the world, and there are reports that are publicly available of how robust this is, even to identify between identical twins. And that's really how voice biometrics stacks up. If you compare that with all the other forms of authentication, fingerprint, retina, facial, the significant advantage that voice biometrics has is that the cost of ownership is lower. There is no device dependency. As long as you can speak into a microphone, voice authentication can work. And it's also secure. One of the things it also does, as Umesh mentioned, it overcomes literacy challenges because it allows people to just speak. I'll show you a small video, and this is not our video. This is something that I'm showing you is from Discovery Science. And they showed a little video on the use of fingerprints, and this is just to drive home the point on how voice biometrics is more secure than fingerprint authentication. So here's a little video for you. We have your fingerprints now. So governments around the world have started to adopt voice biometrics in a very large manner. I'll just show you some clippings. All of this information is available publicly. So take a look at small countries like New Zealand, where you would have thought that this problem is not going to be such an issue. Well, the government of New Zealand does all of its taxes and authentication for tax payments and withdrawals using voice biometrics. This is their website. In the United States, any benefits, social subsidies that you're going to collect, you have to use voice to authenticate. If you look at the Australian government, all subsidies and benefits, again, you have to authenticate using your voice. And so I'll come to this, what Gartner wrote about the use of voice biometrics, that you can also use voice biometrics to capture criminals. Well, one of our customers, which is the Singapore Prison Service, uses voice biometrics to actually keep people under house arrest. Rather than put them in jail, put them in house arrest and call them randomly And so when they pick up the phone and they speak, we know that they're at home. Right? And that's where voice biometrics is used. Another country which is close to India is Philippines. And one of the large problems that Philippines had was illegal pensions. People would die, but their family would continue to collect pensions for a long time. Right? So how did they go about curbing this? So this is the GSIS, which is part of the government social security sector in the Philippines, that made the use of voice biometrics available to all pensioners, not just in Philippines, but around the world. And this is a very small video. It's just about a minute that you can see how GSIS did it.